Okay, Habarigani, which means what's the news? And you'll learn more about that as we move forward. I am Muhjah Shakir, Dr. Shakir, and affectionately known by some as Mama Muhjah. I too would like to express my deep appreciation for this opportunity to be in the space with you all and to be able to share with you in hopes that we are working towards creating a new and different reality for ourselves and for our people. The first thing I want to do is to pour libations. And again, I have no idea how familiar people are with libations, but it is a traditional African ceremony. And it's typically performed before important events. So this is certainly an important event. And we as a people truly revere and remember our ancestors. So let us begin. For the African father of medicine, Imhotep. And the response is Ashe. And I realize most people are going to be muted, but still, even though you are muted, in the space that you're in, please respond with Ashe, which means, and so it is. It's an energetic word that gives power to the whole process. For Queen Hatshepsut, who ruled ancient Egypt, or Kemet, in peace for 22 years, we are in need of peace today. Ashe. For the captive Africans who died and those who died in the Middle Passage, which is the trip by ship from Africa to America. Ashe. For those who survived the Middle Passage, only to be enslaved in North America, South America, and the islands of the Caribbean. Ashe. For Sojourner Truth. Ashe. Frederick Douglass. Ashe. Denmark Vesey. Ashe. Gabriel Prosser. Ashe. Nat Turner. Ashe. All who fearlessly led slave revolts against the oppressor. For Harriet Tubman, Ashe. For Ida B. Wells, Ashe. For Booker T. Washington, Ashe. For George Washington Carver, Ashe. For W.E.B. Du Bois, Ashe. For Marcus Garvey, Ashe. For Mary McLeod Bethune, Ashe. For the courageous souls who lost their lives on the front lines and in the trenches of the Civil Rights Movement and the Black Power Movement, Ashe. For Medgar Evers, for Martin Luther King, Ashe. Fannie Lou Hamer, Ashe. George and Jonathan Jackson, Ashe, the Soledad brothers. Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, Ashe, Ashe. Geronimo G. Jaga Pratt, Noah Washington, and others who languished in prisons until death, Ashe. Now, you can say out the names of your own ancestor, and let's just do one big Ashe. Maybe you could name a deceased member of your family that you felt was an important, towering figure that represented high virtues and morals and excellence. Do that to yourselves out loud. Maud, Stevenson, Carey, Ashe, Ashe, Asheo. All right. So next, I have a short PowerPoint presentation that I want to share with everybody. And it's a PowerPoint that was created during the years that I was on the campus teaching occupational therapy, but also developing and leading up the Black Belt Deliberative Dialogue group. Excuse me. And it was developed with support from students that were members of the Black Belt Deliberative Dialogue group, and also with Dr. John Tillman. Okay, so the history of Kwanzaa. You know, it's important when we have discussions about important things that we take a minute to put some context around what it is that we're talking about, because often in that context, there's some very pertinent information that helps people to understand what it is that we're actually talking about. So as I said earlier, Habaragani is the ritual greeting for Kwanzaa. It's a call and response, which means what's the news? The ritual response to Habaragani is the principle of the day. And for today, we're practicing UMOJA. It was derived from the phrase Matunda ye Kwanzaa, which means first fruits in Swahili. Each family celebrates Kwanzaa in its own way, but celebrations often include songs and dances, African drums, storytelling, poetry reading, and a large traditional meal. On each of the 7 nights, the family gathers and a child lights one of the candles on the kanara, which is the candle holder. Then one of the 7 principles is discussed. The principles called the Nguzo Saba are values of African culture, which contribute to building and reinforcing community among African Americans. This is the founder, Dr. Maulana Karenga. At the time, he was a professor and chair of the Black Studies Department at California University in Long Beach. He, and I would imagine he was inspired, well, he was inspired by many others to create Kwanzaa in 1966, following the Watts riots in Los Angeles. He searched for ways to bring African Americans together as a community. He founded an organization called US, which is an acronym for United Slaves. It was a cultural organization and started to research African first fruit harvest celebrations. Karenga combined aspects of several different harvest celebrations, such as those of the Ashanti, Zulu, to form the basis of Kwanzaa. So the very first Kwanzaa was held on December 30th, 1966 in Los Angeles. Its origins are found in the inspiration that he received from Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik Shabazz, who was assassinated in 1965. Also, there was a march that occurred in several cities around the United States, but Greenwood, Mississippi, as well as Jackson, Mississippi, and Nashville, Tennessee are mostly known for this particular march. And then components of the Black Power, Black nationalism, Black internalism, armed self-defense, and cultural identification with Africa all inspired the origins of Kwanzaa. I won't go into all of this, but this slide basically gives you a little information about the differences between revolutionary nationalism and cultural nationalism. As previously stated, it began in Southern California, but there was a sister that lived in Northern California, Harriet Smith, also known as Sister Muhjah, who would be an ancestor now, Ashe, was responsible for Kwanzaa spreading to the northern part of California. And then, of course, from there, it went across the rest of the country. Amira Baraka of CAP, the Congress of African People, was also an important figure and in the Black Power movement, which was formed in 1970. Amira Baraka was a poet. He made significant contributions to the Black Liberation Movement throughout the 70s, and as a leading organization in the National Black Political Convention, the National Black Assembly, African Liberation Day, the African Liberation Support Committee, and the Black Women's United Front. CAP also became active in the new communist movement as the Revolutionary Communist League. This firsthand narrative of CAP is a part of a movement to document and analyze Black power in the African American freedom movement of the 1950s through the 1970s. So these are the 7 principles. think each day each hour, we're gonna talk about one of these. So today we're looking at unity, UMOJA, and that has been defined to mean strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. And of course, we're gonna be finding correlations between that and the work of the SMART organization. These are the other 7 pillars of the Nguzo Saba. So there we are today, to strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. Okay. That concludes my remarks.
Ashe. Thank you so much, Dr. Shakir. So like she said, we're beginning with unity, and I think that's a beautiful space for us to really kind of touch on. And so our next speaker, who is going to be elaborating more on this first principle of Kwanzaa, is really awesome and really super in alignment with this entire conversation, right? The cannabis industry is something new, right? It's something that has, as an industry, always existed in some capacities, right? Whether it be official or not official, right? But regardless of that fact, right? We understand that it's an herb. It can be used in hundreds and thousands of different ways, especially in the face of climate change. And so in order for us to be innovative as a community, right? And when we look at the word community, it's common unity, right? Dr. Shakir is the one who really brought that to my attention in the first place. It's about being able to connect with the people around you, right? And even right now, right, in this virtual space, our community extends to more than what's directly around us, right? But this next speaker, we're so honored that she's here. Muhjah Lennora Muti'ah. Did I say it right? Your last name always kind of gets me. But I'm gonna let you introduce yourself because you're so beautiful and you're so amazing. And she's awesome. She stopped me in the library like, man, I heard you're working with cannabis. I got this thing. We're doing some awesome things. What do we need to do and how do we get involved? It's an outstanding, shining community member of Tuskegee. And like, it's just so beautiful to see these different members of the campus, of the community, both virtually and all over really the United States right now. And this woman is truly universal. So I'm gonna pass it to you. Thank you so much, Sister Tia.
Ashe, ashe, ashe. Greetings. Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Greetings of blessings, and as we enter 2022, 2021 has been truly epic. I say that it has been epic because of who we are, and unity is really what every single individual that crosses over to Mother Tuskegee, that is the essence and the revival of Mother Tuskegee. So it is truly an honor to be here. I am Lennora Muti'ah Perot. It's like Ross Perot and Inspector Perot. So I am an island girl. I was born in the island of St. Lucia. So I see my beginnings and my traditional upbringing has always been from a holistic perspective. So from a holistic perspective, we really are where we need to be. And the way the universe works is that it gives you everything you need. We have everything we need in the universe. And when we speak about us as a community, as a village, as a member of society, the biggest thing for us is the principles that each and every one of us already have within us. So I think that's what makes being a part of this conversation really necessary for so many different reasons. And I think when you put it in reference to the financial perspective of where we are, it's really necessary that we acknowledge the living legacy of who we are. So our living legacy is when we have individuals like Dr. Hill, who has been prominent in making sure that we're part of the conversation. And so as we're here, being here to address this very significant and relevant conversation, I think as a Muslim, it's really important that we have real representation. And I think too many times we get into this idea of traditional versus modern. And my understanding is that traditional evolves into modernism. And so that is the stance in which I am moving forward as a member of this society. We're in a global nexus. We are part of this living legacy. So when it comes to the realities of where we are, it is necessary that we take our role in this. And this is where I'm very grateful for the work that each and every one of you that are doing here today. And just thank you for being open to have the conversation, being open to evolve in the way that you're doing. You're evolving in such a graceful, beautiful manner. And the title, the names, the fact that you're open. And I think these are the different myths that we have. We have these myths that, okay, these are this way and that way. And what you're proving is that we're open, we're here, let's have the conversation. And so for me, it's really necessary to have the conversation from a medicinal perspective and also from a monetary perspective. So monetary, we have to be a part of the conversation. Then we also have to look at what are the benefits of this for us as a community, as a nation, as people. So those are the most really realistic things that I'm here to make claim that we have to be a part of the conversation, and not just from us putting our money in, but us making the money. It's really, really important. And that's one of the things that I'm very grateful for, Dr. Hill, making sure that we're at the table to be the ones, to be the producers, and to be the ones to have the access to be able to make the money. That's really, really important as we're here. And the other thing too is I want to thank each and every one of you for helping to make that happen. And a lot of times at this stage, we really have to educate our communities because there's so many misconceptions about what it is that we're doing and what the actual conversation is. So we can't be in silos when we're addressing cannabis. We have to have a more open dialogue in reference to how we address it. Because too many times they want to label us African Americans as the negative aspects of this thing when this dates over 500 BC. So this is not new. It dates the beginning of American history. You get to see that this was introduced from that moment. So we have a great opportunity here. And I'm very, very excited to be a part of that conversation. Definitely education is key. And I think that in many ways, we have to not just we just can't talk about it. We also have to be about it. And it doesn't necessarily mean the things, we have to create a new perspective, a new understanding. So I'm excited to be an elder who is going to be led by my younger individuals in the community to help me to make this thing happen. So I'm here to be at your service to help make this thing happen. Again, it truly is an honor. And I think many times we have to look at the history, but in the process, we also have to create a new curriculum, a new process, a new understanding. I'm a 70s babies, 80s raised. So PSAs is what I was raised on. Public service announcements is what we really need to get moving. We got to have public service announcements. We have to get each individual who are part of this thing talking about what the actual aspect of this is and why this is important to us, because the young people are looking at us. So we need to use all of the things we have, social media, our radio stations, all the different things, and be the face. We have to be the face in the community. So as we're here and as Dr. Muhjah has eloquently put it as the living legacy of our history. I am just really excited to be here. I'm excited to be a part of the conversation. I just want to let you guys know that I truly represent the positive aspects of everything that is here, that we're here to do. So again, thank you for the opportunity. And I'm here. I hope I'm doing justice in whatever way that you can. And it's just really great to be a part of the conversation. And again, I'm at your service. It was really necessary to be here to share with you. Number one, as we're moving forward, to acknowledge each and every one of you. This is a very delicate time. And the other thing that's really important for us is that from a mental health perspective, this is so important that we take on these medicinal benefits of this herb, because lots of us in the community are many times taking it in an abusive manner, whereas we have to look at it from a health perspective. There's lots of people that are in need of mental stability, and that's one of the greatest ways to help people balance in their, like stated, ultimate health. So most definitely, just really excited, and thank you for the opportunity. And I am here, and just thank you. It's big. It's so much bigger than all of us, and it's really a great way to start. So again, let's get it moving. Let's get it done. Let's be all about it.
Shay, thank you so much. And I think what's really important is like, I would be remiss if I didn't kind of reflect, right? And in the beginning of Dr. Shakir's presentation, she touched on Black Belt Deliberative Dialogue Group. And I mean, being able to hold space and to have conversations and to eliminate barriers where people can come together and sit down as equals to have these conversations has been super transformative in my life. And had it not been for Black Belt, I wouldn't, know you, Sister T. I wouldn't really know a lot of the people in the community that I know. I wouldn't honestly be who I am today. I wouldn't understand the purpose of education is service, right? And I think ultimately when we think about community, when we think about, Tuskegee, what Booker T. Washington did, what all of our communities are looking to do right now, Black Wall Street, all of these are efforts to realize that community. These are all efforts to realize the power of holding space and just being together, right? And just by us coming here and having this conversation, we're already, like you said, we're knocking down barriers. And in terms of the myths, the perceptions, I saw in the chat, Stephen made a comment that said, education is the key to separating stigmatized mistruths from truths, right? And ultimately, this is a conversation about truth. This is a conversation about what is actually going on, the reality of this plant, the reality of the conditions that people in the United States have been subscribed to compared to other people, and how that has manifested in missed opportunities, whether that be economically, socially, and culturally, right? Our opportunities to innovate and build our own culture, right? Using things that we've always used, which is our connection with the land and our connection with the earth. And I think Tuskegee is just such a beautiful space to, we poured libations to Dr. Carver earlier as well. And so, he's like the epitome of that relationship with the land, right? We paid homage to Fannie Lou Hamer, right? She took 3 pigs and created from 3 pigs, you know what I'm saying? An entire, cooperative housing space, and gave, like literally created an entire community off of the labor and the love of the labor and the labor of love, and putting all of these things together. And so I just have to take this moment to, again, pay homage, because community is just such a big thing. And, Lakiah and I had a conversation about this as well. So I'm going to toss it to her as she begins our educational piece, right? And really kind of bringing that connection. Like, so what is cannabis? What is hemp? What are these things? And that's what my Clark sister is about to walk us through. Ashe.
To add, before you go on, to add to what you just stated, since you added that, is that we have to look at this in its multitude. So as we're introducing it to the community, we have to we have to take it in stages, because it's so big. it's really, really necessary that as we're moving forward, which is what I'm sure Queen Clark is going to make sure that we do, is that as we, so that's really, really important. I think that's when, even when we're individually, when we're addressing it to the community, we have to always understand who we're addressing. Too many times we have all of this intellectual stuff in here, or all of this love and passion here. And when we meet someone, we just want to share with them and make sure that they hear what we're saying. But it's really necessary that you're aware of who your audience is. You're aware of who you're speaking to, because many times if you give someone too much information, less information, you don't get to promote or give the right or correct information. So as we're in this space, I think it really is important that we address who we understand our community, and as we're moving forward, we address each individual on the level on which that they are.
Absolutely. Thank you all, you beautiful queens, for your beautiful remarks. And as mentioned by my Clark sister, I will be speaking towards that exactly. And what is cannabis? And this is something that we're really passionate about. I'm just gonna hop right to it. This is just a basic overview of cannabis. Just to set the tone about the conversation, because we'll be hearing from people who work in different spaces, and we just want to provide some type of background. So to Candace's point, and also, you know, to all the points that have been made, we want to understand, like, what is this cannabis plant? So cannabis is that. It's a plant. It's an annual herbaceous flowering plant. So for it to be an annual plant, that means it goes from seed, germination, flowering, and death all in one season. It's an herb. And we often recognize the flower as a part of that herb. However, in the agricultural space, which cannabis has formerly been reintroduced to, first in the 2014 Farm Bill, and then again in the 2018 Farm Bill, cannabis extends beyond, you know, just the flower that many people are familiar with. So as an agricultural product, it can provide us food. So we can get hemp seeds from cannabis that are consumable, you know, for human consumption. It's also been looked at to use as feed for agricultural animals. Cannabis also provides fiber. So we know that we can create all kinds of different textiles and medicines, as was spoken to earlier today. So we can create cosmetic products, home goods, and other agricultural products from the cannabis plant. I'm gonna go to my next slide. So there's a number of different types of cannabis plants. So cannabis is, and we're using the term cannabis because it's the scientific name. So we will not close without addressing this difference between cannabis, or what people, you know, address as marijuana previously, and then how we're entering into the hemp industry formally, thanks to the Farm Bill. But so cannabis can be classified as cannabis sativa, which is a taller stalk of a plant. It has more narrow leaves. And it's recognized, I believe, for its like more calming effects in medicine. But I don't want us to, I want to not always address the medicinal factors, because that's one of the barriers that we have about cannabis. And I think that's one of the things we want to take down as we look for economic opportunity, we have to expand our mental space beyond this one aspect of the plant and consider its how versatile it is. So cannabis indica is a low growing plant. It's short and bushy, and it tends to have broader leaves. And then ruderalis is more like a wild type of cannabis plant. And then also what's not listed here are like hybrids. So like a mix between a sativa and an indica, as sativas and indicas are the main plants used in the industry. So just following into the anatomy of the cannabis plant, if you're following on the screen, we know we have some basic plant parts like the stem that provides it with support, and the leaves, which people may be familiar with, the 5 or 7 pointed fan leaves, which are unique to the cannabis plants and are just responsible for, not just, but are totally responsible for the photosynthetic process of keeping plants alive. So that's just, plant growth. And then as we continue up, we'll look at the cola. So the cola is the top of the plant. This is the collection of flowers on the plant, and this is only on female plants. What's not listed here is the node, and if you can see my pointer, I'm pointing right where the branches come off of the stem. This is the node. Nodes of cannabis plants are really important as we cultivate them, because in the node, you're able to determine the sex of the plant. Male plants will have like little pollen sacs in the nodes, and depending on what they're being grown for, they can be removed if identified early on, or if we're looking at the hemp industry, they may just stay. The bract is the part of the female plant. They're not true leaves, but they're small leaves that protect the seeds that are inside of the cola. And then trichomes, these are really important. They're like snail-like appendages. So if you can imagine the antennas of a snail, how they are straight and then they have like a bulb at the end. These are trichomes on the cannabis plant. And these trichomes hold space for the cannabinoids and the terpenes. So cannabinoids are the active compounds that are found in cannabis. Some common ones are THC and CBD. THC is recognized to have the psychoactive effect of the cannabis plant. And then CBD, we recognize its medicinal properties without having that psychoactive effect. However, there are hundreds of cannabinoids inside cannabis plants, and they're continuously being discovered through research today. And then last on this slide, we want to mention the terpenes. Just reminding you that the terpenes are also located inside of these trichomes, and terpenes are not exclusive to cannabis. Terpenes are aromatic compounds that determine the smell of plants and herbs. So yes, cannabis has a distinct aroma. And then between cannabis plants, you can have different types of aromas. But we also experience terpenes with other herbs like rosemary and lavender and sage and eucalyptus. And just for me, just speaking of them reminds me of the effects that they have on me. Like we know that lavender can be calming and sage can be cleansing, right? So these terpenes also have those type of effects in cannabis plants. But we also want to recognize again this distinction between cannabis and hemp. So as I mentioned earlier, the 2018 Farm Bill directed the United States Department of Agriculture to establish a framework for hemp production. So we need to understand what hemp is, because these are the doors that have recently been opened for us in this industry. So hemp is defined as cannabis sativa. So if you remember, on the second slide, cannabis sativa, that's our long, stocky plant with really narrow leaves. Any part of this plant that has a delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, that is the formal name for THC, the psychoactive cannabinoid that most of us are familiar with in the cannabis plant. So in order for it to be classified as hemp, the THC concentration cannot be more than 0.3% on a dry weight basis, right? So all that's important, you know, even dry weight, like, so we're talking about a dried plant. And this consists of all components of the plant. All of the components must be less than 0.3%, have a concentration of THC that's less than 0.3. So this is a really touchy topic for me. I appreciate the term cannabis because it addresses marijuana and it addresses hemp. But we want to recognize, so that's kind of how that's how it's been used in this space. But we want to recognize that there are developments, though the Farm Bill has allowed us to, has opened up doors for hemp across the nation. There are some states that regulate production of marijuana for medicinal practices. But we want to acknowledge cannabis so that we're not excluding either of these industries as we consider all the opportunities that are available within them. So we'll have some more experts, and during our panels, we'll be asking our experts to speak towards the differences of cannabis, of marijuana. You see what I did there? We'll ask them to speak towards the differences of marijuana and hemp, but we are recognizing that both of these plants, their scientific name is cannabis. I mean, we just want to remove that barrier of confusion as we move forward. And just for affirmation, the definition that's been used, that's been shared with you today for hemp is directly from the USDA. So the USDA does recognize that hemp is cannabis sativa with regulated THC levels.
Okay, Lakiah, you just said a lot of words there. So just one more time, if you could break it down for me, right? What is the difference between hemp, cannabis, and marijuana?
Absolutely. So cannabis is our parent plant name. All right. Hemp is cannabis sativa. So scientifically, right? We scientifically are Homo sapiens, right? But you're Candace Clark and I'm Lakiah Clark, right? So we're in the same family, but we have our own differences. And this same thing exists for cannabis. Cannabis is our family. And within cannabis, we have cannabis sativa, we have cannabis indica, and then we have hybrids between the two. But when cannabis sativa has a THC concentration that is less than 0.3% of its dry weight, it is formally classified as hemp. If your THC concentrations exceed 0.3%, it is then marijuana, which is still a Schedule I drug according to the DEA. So our differences lie in our concentration of those beautiful cannabinoids. One specifically that's being pointed out, and it's really interesting as we get into policy and justice, and we see how they've taken this plant and broken it down. And THC, it's being ridiculed because of its own existence, right? It's being ridiculed and managed and determined how to define this plant. But cannabis can't help it. It just comes that way.
She just grows like that. And that is so perfect, right? So I do, and it's perfect because our next panel is about understanding and navigating political structures, right? So everything that she just said is really breaking down, again, the social and cultural and political differences that exist within the terminology, right? And so we're going to be breaking all of that down in about 10 more minutes. But I do want to open it up for some final comments from Dr. Shakir, Sister Tia, and any of our audience members.
And to add to our PSA, what she stated was a perfect PSA. So she needs to be the face of the one to explain this in every single way. And I think the key thing that she stated was that there is a difference, and the difference is really important, as we're going to see the next panelist break down. But that was such a perfect scientifical manner in which she explained it and break it down. And that's really, really key, because the average person does not know that in any way. There's all these different stigmas in their head that is just one thing, and that one thing is always based on it being negative. So just thank you so much for a really great classification. But when we look at this plant, I look at, that's what they do to us as African Americans in every single way. The way you broke it down was just like, we've been going through this process as African Americans for all our existence. So this is really just, and I'm not gonna go there, I'm just gonna make that statement. It was really powerful.
It's getting good. We booting up, y'all. We booting up. Dr. Shakir, what's up?
I wanted to go ahead and light the candle for UMOJA, again, which means unity. And I thought that Lakiah did a really good job too of explaining it. I especially liked her analogy or the metaphor of a family. And yet that within the family, you know, you got different personalities, you got different ages, different sizes, different attitudes. You got a whole lot of things going on, but yet the family is still united. So you can't help but bring that back to nature. You know, that within nature, we have all of this diversity, you know, and as, you know, we're discussing cannabis in particular, all this diversity, but yet it is but one. And that's a powerful lesson for all of us, is to push past what appears to be differences, so many differences, because as you have up, you have down, you have in, you have out, you have the positive eons and the negative eons and so on, light and dark and so on and so forth. But in the final analysis, it's a universe. It's one, it's whole, expressing itself in different ways.
Ashe. I would also like to highlight Stephen's comment in the chat, recognizing that there are 113 cannabinoids produced by the plant, and only one of these cannabinoids is used to regulate policy. And I think what's also interesting about that, and I'm not proclaiming my seat as an expert, not quite yet, but I'll be there.
Not yet, okay.
Not yet. But what I think is also interesting is that research has shown us that we're finding ways, people are searching for ways to get around policy. So mind you, when we talked about THC, we talked about Delta 9 THC. And you guys may have heard about, there's a Delta 8 THC, and that people are using the Delta 8 concentration to move cannabis as a medicinal herb. But I think the difference between Delta 9 and Delta 8 is simply combustion, which we know that can happen when you set fire to the plant, and you can convert Delta 8 to Delta 9, and it still can have those psychoactive effects, but not be regulated by policy. So again, just like the diversity of the plant, but the exclusion of this one. Is Stevie, you're gonna have to come share the science, man. You gotta come share, you expert researcher.
Right, I'm about to say, come off mute, Stevie. We need you to talk real quick, because you just dropping.
Tell us the difference. Stephen, we would love if you would expand on it. He's more of an expert, but he'll be also helping us facilitate this conversation later on today.
Okay, yeah, we could chill. We got excited. We got excited. He's making us wait. He's making us wait. Sorry about that. I got a phone call. He's making us, yeah, he's making us wait for that. Suspense. We'll take it. We'll take it.
We gotta save it, Nia.
We got you, bro. Yes. But we're about to start transition. I just want to say I think this is so perfect though, because the fact that I'm so excited to hear from these ladies. I'm actually also so excited that it's just so happened to be a group of, we opened with, Black women. So, it begins and ends with, the cycle of life, right? And it's a beautiful way to really, especially in this season of giving and this season of life, even though it's also winter, right? So it's like a hibernation period. It's a rejuvenation time. So this is a beautiful time for us to really, reflect again on what community means. And I want to read this comment in the chat from Roberta. She says she loves the enthusiasm in breaking down the difference and that it's a great example of knowing your audience. So I tried to hip y'all to Lakiah and how hard she really goes. But we're going to see more of her all throughout today. And I'm so excited for that. As we begin to transition, I just want to let you all know to feel free. We're going to go and we'll be back at about 11:05, right? So go get your water, go get your tea. Look, I got my little tea right here. I don't know if y'all saw me. I had some pineapples earlier. Like, you got to nourish thine self, okay? I got my little water. So go get your survival kit, okay? And come back, get in the mix. But if you want to hang around, we can chat a little bit more. But at 11:05, we're going to transition into Kuji Chagalia, which actually is my favorite Kwanzaa principle. So I hope you all are ready. Ashe, ashe, ashe.